episode of Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. It is the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime on trending criminal cases. There is no bigger manhunt in the country right now than for a guy named Travis Decker, who was accused of roughly a week ago, unthinkably murdering his own 3 young daughters by asphyxiation. Those daughters are Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia Decker, and this is a photo of them. If I can bring it up here, let me show you the 3 because they're adorable little kids. COE, that is not the adorable little kids, but the COE will bring those up for you. And now the manhunt is obviously intensifying for Travis Decker. He is a former Army Ranger with survival skills training. As you know, Rangers are a very elite part of the United States Army. So this guy knows what he's doing in the wilderness, and authorities say he may be on the Pacific Crest Trail. Authorities believe that he is armed and dangerous and still on the run, which is interesting because a lot of people have surmised that maybe he has unalived himself, but apparently authorities are taking no chances here, saying that they do think he is alive and out there. Why was an Amber Alert not issued sooner? How did the mental health system and the courts fail to protect these girls? And what happens next as this nationwide search for Travis Decker continues? Perhaps a multi-nation search if he was able to get up to Canada, which is not that far away. We've got a great panel tonight, and let's break it down right now. First up to the show is a former hostage negotiator for Kings County in Seattle. Jim Fuda was with the Kings County Sheriff's Office for, I believe, over 30 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jim. So Jim is 33 years, and Jim is used to talking people like this guy down to get them to surrender. And Pascal Fortman, first time ever, glad to have her. She is an attorney who actually did what I would love to do, and she left that career behind and had a business and has a business related to the behavioral science of dogs and dog training, which is pretty cool. She's also, as I mentioned, an attorney, so she's going to be able to speak to some of the issues with the Amber Alert and what went on and what went wrong here. Now, there's a bit of news just breaking on this that could or could not be important, and that is that this triple murder suspect, Travis Decker, according to authorities, was involved in a rear-end collision. This was just 2 days before police say he kidnapped and murdered his 3 children in Wenatchee, if I am pronouncing that correctly. This is being reported by Cairo 7, the local station, that a police officer with the Wenatchee Police Department responded to a crash at the intersection of Miller Streets and 5th Street. That was Wednesday around 3:52. So those are in the early morning hours. We all know, who knows what, if any, damage he physically took or whiplash in that car and what the circumstances were. But obviously investigators are going to be looking at absolutely every bit of information, including the repercussions of a collision that happened just 2 days before. The Chelan County Sheriff's Office has issued a new warning for residents in rural areas of several Washington counties, including Chelan, Kittitas, King, Snohomish, and Akongan. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing. These are the different counties. They say, again, that deputies believe he is on the loose, Travis Decker, and that those who have remote cabins in these areas should lock their doors and windows, including sheds and outbuildings, I guess like outhouses. They also recommend leaving window blinds open and outside lights on so he can if he's there, which you hope he's not, can see that you're inside. Jim Fuda, got to come to you first. Is this just protocol here, or do they know something we don't? Because it seems like they think he is still alive. A lot of people, when we did this show initially, said, I'm sure this guy is unalived himself. Who would want to stay alive? But you just don't know what a person like this is thinking at this point.
Right. And protocol is one thing, but when you start thinking about the big picture here, is that you got the U.S. Marshals involved, you got the FBI, you got local law enforcement, and there's a command post there, and they're throwing ideas together, and anything that might help locate this guy or somebody in these rural areas will see him. You know, this Icicle Creek area where the girls were found is very, very rural, mountainous. A lot of trees, rivers, those kinds of things. So the guy could be anywhere, and if he is still alive, they're expecting that he obviously pre-planned this and has areas where he's dumped off supplies as he keeps moving. And you know, like you and I spoke about this earlier, if he's not dead already, if he didn't kill himself, is he looking for a way to have a big standoff and shootout with the police? Maybe, but you know, this has been almost a week now, and he's making himself pretty difficult to find.
Yeah. And Pascal, I'm coming to you in a minute. But I'm just trying to bring this photo up here. You can see very clearly, Jim Fuda, sort of the denseness of the forested areas here in these rural counties. I mean, this is like looking for a needle in a haystack. You see a sheriff's helicopter, but outside of helicopters and their eyeballs, what are they utilizing right now to try to find this guy in this literal forest of trees?
Well, those helicopters that are going around there right there have what's called a fluoroscope on them, and they're heat-seeking a device that gives an outline of a person or an animal. Also, drones are out there looking for this guy. But you know, you're in a rural area. There's bears, there's deer, there's elk. So you have to differentiate as you look at those heat signals that are coming up of whether that's an animal or this guy. And the other thing that might make this difficult, if this guy's dead, his body's not producing any heat, so he could make him even more difficult to find.
That's a great point. And by the way, just so everyone knows, we kind of put this together very last minute. So big thanks to Jim. And by the way, Pascal is Jim's wife, power couple here. And they were just in D.C. I'd asked them to do this the other day, but they were in Washington, D.C. And so they're just back, probably maybe slightly jet lagged, who knows, but thankful to have them. And this is a big story that pretty much no one, at least on the East Coast where we are, is covering, and I haven't seen as much as attention as it deserves. But Pascal, finally to you. First of all, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Great to have you here for a first time, and hopefully you'll come back on other stories. But what, I guess, from sort of a bird's eye view, when you heard about this story, obviously it's incredibly tragic. We're talking about a dad accused of murdering his 3 daughters. But other than that, what kind of jumped out at you?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Joel. So the main issue when I heard about the story is I wanted to jump in right away into the custody agreement. How can it be that this father was even allowed to have unsupervised visitation rights? Because we're local here in West Seattle. And so we saw on our local TV stations the mom talking about issues that the dad had. He was homeless. He lived in an RV or in homeless shelters. He had psychiatric issues, so mental issues. So how could that, from a legal point of view, even be possible that he could take the girls, 3 girls? And so I did a deep dive into that custody agreement because on social media, many people are accusing the judge. And I wanted to see if there's truth to that.
Yeah. And do you think the judge has any culpability here? Was this a mistake? And we'll dig deeper into it, but just on this, from what you saw on the surface, does it seem like the judge made a wrong call here?
Typical attorney answer, yes and no. I don't think it's that clear cut. I don't see the typical
Yeah.
issue here. Yes.
Yeah, and Carrie here says the custody agreement says there was no history of domestic violence, and I was reading some of these court documents and reports on them, and she was concerned, I guess, about the fact that he may not have been living in a actual home and living out of a car. There was a concern there, but there didn't seem to be a concern about violence for sure. Jim Fuda, let's take a step back and we'll kind of handle both of these issues at once. But the crime, I mean, this is what we know so far, and this is tough to listen to. But again, we've got Paityn Decker, who's the oldest at 9, Evelyn Decker, 8, and then we've got Olivia Decker, 5. The oldest with brown hair, brown eyes, the other 2 with more blondish hair and brown eyes. Absolutely adorable little girls. I mean, it's just, if you think about this, you can't even get through the story. So I'm going to do my best to just block it out, as bad as that may sound. But Friday, May 30th, Jim Fuda, they are picked up by their father, Travis Decker, for this planned visitation. And there's the mother, Whitney, who's got to be going through just an unbelievable amount of pain right now that I'm sure is indescribable. But apparently Travis Decker chatted with Whitney about his dog, and the dog is actually named after an Army helicopter, Chinook. And she offered to so the dog's name is Chinook, and she offered to let the dog stay with her because she was afraid of the heat, because Decker at this point was living in the car. Now, the kids were supposed to be home at 8 o'clock. She says the last thing she said was, "See you at 8 p.m." She told the kids to get the things to go until 8 o'clock. Now, there's a neighbor of Whitney speaking out. Her name is Bin Nguyen, who observed Travis Decker, she says, acting strange. She says he had a sad look on his face and that he was asking the same question repeatedly, possibly confused. So let me just hold it right there. Jim Fuda, I mean, this is a guy who served as an Army Ranger. He deployed, from what I understand. He was also part of the Washington National Guard. And then he hadn't been showing up to some stuff and was under some sort of disciplinary, he had been disciplined at the very least. And I think they were looking to further whatever action they were going to take against him. But what do you make of the fact that he, quote unquote, had a sad look and he was having trouble recollecting his line of questioning, that his thought process was skewed? Jim?
Well, I'm thinking there's probably obviously some mental health issues there, whether it be the PTSD thing or what it might be. But you got to wonder, this obviously had been planned, especially if he's still alive, because like I mentioned, he had to prepare himself for living in the outdoors for quite a while. But precipitating factors come into mind. Is what led up to it happening at this particular time? What happened to him in the last 24, 48 hours? And it's funny you mentioned about that motor vehicle accident. I didn't know about that. So you wonder if something of that didn't play into some of his legal troubles, his military troubles. He was getting ready to be forcibly discharged. So you got to wonder if some of that played into his thought process that led up to this.
Yeah. Pascal, I've got to ask you, and then I was not going to ask you this, but since you are basically an expert in dogs and the behavior of dogs, what, if anything, I mean, the search area seems to be enormous, but are they able at this point, do you think, are they using dogs to try to find this guy? I mean, are they able to get a scent off of that campsite and then send them around? What are your thoughts? What are these dogs capable of in this kind of a situation, if anything?
I would assume they're considering dogs, yes, in the search. Especially they found the bodies of the so tragic. I have such pain talking about it, but 3 little girls. Cannot imagine how that was to find them. But back to the point, I think they found the bodies of the girls at a campsite, and I would assume that there's a radius they can search for with the dogs from that campsite where they found the bodies. But I'm not sure if they expect him to still be in the vicinity of the bodies. I don't think so. So it becomes more and more difficult as the radius goes out, to then use the dogs. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. Where is he supposed to be right now? I think we have conflicting information there in the media.
Yeah, and here too, Money Penny. I've seen people saying that he was had some sort of drug addiction. He'd been doing street drugs. I don't know that I've heard that confirmed by authorities. If it has been, please let me know. He is said to have borderline personality disorder. Jim Fuda, I know you're not a psychologist, but you're a hostage negotiator. So, can you just sort of explain, as in your own understanding of what borderline personality disorder is?
Well, like I said, I am no expert. In fact, how we as negotiators, I used to call it the 3 C's: the criminal, the crusader, and the crazy. And the criminal, you break up into the inadequate or antisocial personality, one of the two. And the antisocial is the most difficult to deal with. It's all about them. Those are the sociopath types. The criminal, the antisocial, is much more difficult to deal with than like I say, the where you break down the criminality type of thing. So if he had a mental disorder that led towards his narcissistic behaviors, that's going to be a real difficult person to deal with.
Yeah. Again, I just want to thank Jim and Pascal, because we kind of put this together very short notice, and it's probably going to be a bit of a truncated show, but this is an important story. I wanted to get it out there. And one of the things police are doing, they are releasing new stills. So this is one of the stills to give you a better idea. Someone said his head shaved. It looks like his hair is grown out and pulled back. COE, I don't think I can, but can you run the video? There's also Ring doorbell video that they just released not long ago of Travis Decker. This is him. Obviously, he is looking lean and fit as a ranger in the Army. You'd expect him to look. Tattooed, just so you get a sense of what he looks like, and you see that hair is pulled back in a ponytail. And I'm not sure if this is Whitney's door or not. Then you see the other still on the left with his glasses up. You know, he looks, to be honest, like just about anybody. There's nothing that really jumps out at you. Looks like he could be a father of 3, which obviously he was, until he decided to change that, which is really, really upsetting. But one of the things, Pascal, is they're saying he was under extreme financial stress. So he was living out of a car. This is a guy who served his nation. You know, we hear about 22 unalivings a day. I don't know if that statistic has changed. I just heard it recently that soldiers come back from the military and are unaliving themselves at an alarming rate, literally 22 a day. What do you make of this factor about the financial stress? You think that was potentially enough to just make him, quote unquote, snap? But why take the, I know you're a lawyer, not a psychologist, but I know you guys follow true crime, quite closely. And Jim was obviously in that world, but what do you think? You think it was that made him say, okay, I can't take it anymore. Now I don't want my kids to suffer either.
I think it's much more than that. It's a combination of issues. And I also think it must have been planned. This was not a spur of the moment event, which makes me believe that he had foresight, because he had a 3-hour window. He had a visitation window from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. And he has held this window since September 2024. So it's been months where this custody agreement actually worked. And he already had financial issues back in September. That's when he lived out of his RV and she went to court to take away the weekends, the overnights. which leads me to believe that from September, when this changed, he refused to sign the agreement. He didn't want to get a psychiatric evaluation, domestic violence evaluation. So something led up to this from September to today. And this was planned and has much more to do than finances. And bipolar, I really don't have an opinion on that, but I would assume he has mental issues. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he was diagnosed as borderline, which, to be honest, I thought was bipolar till Carm screamed at me, my mother, and other people screamed at me. And Carm explained borderline as, you can be in one state of mind in a moment and then super angry and worked up in the next moment. Whereas bipolar, and Carm described as being not necessarily that there's a more, I guess, violent bent to borderline personality. I don't know if everyone agrees with that, but that's sort of how she explained it to me. She's probably yelling at the computer saying that's not how she explained it to me. But there you go. Warning here from the COE. Whitney detailed concerning incidents back on August 15th, 2024. Travis allegedly found a daughter passed out with a bathrobe tied around the neck at his mother's house and failed to inform Whitney. I don't know. Another incident on December 19th, 2024 involved one of the daughters injuring her fingers, with Travis reportedly absent and unresponsive to the children. So it did not sound like he was all there in terms of the parenting department. Thank you to Kelly Sandiford for super chat. Really appreciate that. Jim Fuda, again, you're not a psychologist, but let's say totally, hypothetically, that they get a sighting of this guy, which they think they have an idea where he is, but you're the hostage negotiator. How do you prepare for this guy, knowing what you know about him? Let's just say he's holed up in a cabin. Where do you start with this guy to get him to come out?
Yeah, it gets back into the standard hostage negotiations, SWAT team cooperation, where you set a perimeter, you limit his environment, and you talk to him. A guy like this, I would call him the antisocial personality for someone that would do something like this, and work out what's option is best, that he thinks is best for him in the situation that he's in, because it's all about him. I can tell you of a case that I had where a guy murdered his same kind of situation, but he murdered his ex-wife and the current boyfriend in front of their 7-year-old. And after we took him into custody in a pickup truck he was in on a bridge, he was going to kill us. And we got him talked out. And but he said later that had he known the 7-year-old was watching, he would have killed the 7-year-old as well, because he didn't want her growing up knowing that daddy killed mommy. So with that said, he kills the 3 kids. Whatever he was going to do after that, maybe that was some of his thought process too. And under the delusional ideas that this guy might have had, he might have thought he was doing them a favor.
Yeah, I mean, this story is unbelievable because it's the stuff that fictional movies are made of, but unfortunately, it is reality right now in the upper quadrant of the United States, upper left quadrant of the United States here. Jim, there was a comment, and then Pascal, I'm coming back to you, but there was another comment earlier suggesting that maybe he did this to his wife. You think there's an ex-wife? Do you think there's an aspect here of spiting the wife? I mean, you just talked about a guy that murdered his ex-wife and her boyfriend. Obviously, he didn't want that guy with his wife. Do you think here that the children, and I don't mean this in a light-hearted manner, were just kind of pawns in this relationship? And he said, well, if I can't have my wife, and I don't know the circumstances of their separation, that she's not going to, if I'm not going to have her, she's not going to have the kids. And here you go.
Sure. It could be any or all of that stuff, with whether it be punishing her or well, yeah, punishing her for whatever reason. They could have had a beautiful life, but now I'm in where I'm at now and the position I'm in. So you're going to suffer right along with me.
Yeah. You can see the COE here. There's a $20,000 reward. You can call this tip line at 509. I guess this is Chelan County Sheriff's Office, 509 667 6845, 509 667 6845 for the Chelan County Sheriff's Office. Vanilla Bean here says she believes the court system failed these beautiful girls. You heard Pascal saying it's probably a little more complicated than that. But Pascal, the Washington State Police confirmed that there was a request for an Amber Alert to be put out, but it was denied because there was, quote unquote, no initial evidence of imminent harm under the current criteria. And then an endangered missing person alert was issued the next day, which was said to be way too late, obviously. And Whitney, the mother, is frustrated and now has an attorney named Ariana Kozar. But this, through her attorney, said that she's very frustrated the Amber Alert was denied and is already less than a week publicly advocating for reform with this. Talk to us. Why wasn't there enough for this Amber Alert?
Yes, so the Amber Alert has 4 elements. One is age. This was fulfilled here. The second one, there must be an assumption that the kids were abducted, kidnapped. The third is the kids are in imminent danger for bodily injury or death. And the fourth is the description. So we have the description and the age. Now, when it comes to were they abducted, was this the assumption, and were they in imminent danger? There are components to that. So she called the police at 10 p.m., which is 2 hours after he was supposed to return them home. If every time somebody is late on returning the children after visitation, there would be an Amber Alert, we would have nonstop Amber Alerts 24/7. So that's number one. So that's that's what part of the reason why there was no Amber Alert that evening. The second point is, and it's so unfortunate because we saw an interview with the Whitney on national TV, and she was saying things like, I don't believe he's going to hurt the kids. He loves his children. So if she said things like that to the police, that is then a reason for them to say, okay, that means the kids are not in imminent danger. So it's a combination of elements. What I don't understand is why it was refused or turned down several times. So there's the first one I can understand. The law is not quite there for an Amber Alert, but I think it was asked for twice more, 2 times more, and it was turned down the next day as well on Saturday. So I don't know if that could have saved the lives, but that's the truth. Yeah.
And I did hear that myself. This is an interesting question, and I got to tell you, Jim, this is the one thing that has my head scratching. With the bloody handprints on the truck, how do they know that dad killed them and not someone else who killed all 4 and maybe moved the father? So let me just before we answer this, let me just recap a little bit of the actual evening of the crime. Again, Whitney said that she didn't notice any unusual behavior and had no reason to cancel the visit, but the girls never returned. They are on Monday, June 2nd, which is this past Monday, at about 3:45. Police find this 2017 GMC Sierra abandoned at the Rock Island campground, and down a wooded embankment from there, they find the 3 girls who have plastic bags over their heads, and they are zip tied, which is horrific. By the way, they all went to Lincoln Elementary School in the Wenatchee School District. But Jim Fuda, they revealed that bloody handprints are found on the truck. The girls are asphyxiated. We just heard this, as hard as it is to hear. So where is this blood coming from? What's your theory on the bloody handprints?
Well, like I said, not knowing many of the details, I'm not really sure. But believe me that with the command post, with the investigators that are on this, is that they're looking at every aspect. I saw that come in about how to know someone else didn't murder all four of them. I'm sure they're looking at that, and they wouldn't be putting out all that they're putting out if they weren't positive that this is the suspect they're looking for.
Mm. Um, you know, to you, Pascal, it's amazing to me. I mean, and good for Whitney, but I can't imagine she's thinking clearly. But she does have the wherewithal already to say that there needs to be reform with the Amber Alert system. But a couple things, and not to sound harsh, I don't know that they were being kept in an isolated area. They were in an isolated area. I'm not sure that the Amber Alert necessarily would have saved them. Maybe it would have, but what about your point that, if you start doing it for everyone right away, it's a problem, because I mean, kids every second of this day in this country are reported missing because they go to the candy store with their friends or whatever it is for benign reasons, not nefarious reasons. So it would just clog the system. So do you have a thought as an attorney on how you work that system to everyone's benefit?
We could think about time limits, but I think the clue lays in the individual case. If Whitney would have said it has never happened since September 2024, not once has he been late, then that would be a clue for me as a police officer and Whitney to say, we do an Amber Alert right away. But if she says he's been late every time, more or less half an hour, it's 10 p.m. now, that's a different story. So I think it's case by case basis. And I don't know how well police is schooled in assessing each case, in finding out through the mom talking, how severe is this? Like, how deep can they go in their assessment to then ask for an Amber Alert or not? I think it could be an issue there as well, that, they listen to Whitney and Whitney says, yeah, I'm not so worried that he's going to harm them. He loves them. And then we just sit and wait. And this is, of course, has cost them their lives.
This is super, super sad. By the way, it just occurred to me, when you see like in war zones, when hostages are taken, a lot of times you'll see them put a cover over their head and ziplock the hands behind their backs, which reminds me in a sick, twisted way of what he did to the kids, having served overseas. But Marilyn here to Jim, the police in the press conference said there was additional evidence found at the scene that they're not disclosing at the moment, followed by Vesper Martini, our good friend, walks around Miami in that mask and fits right in. No details released on whose bloody handprints, but Jim, you got to think that authorities, with that information that they're not releasing, if they thought there was a chance that he was harmed also, wouldn't we know that by now? Wouldn't authorities have some information somewhere, somehow, that they'd be looking for another killer potentially?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And we don't know what additional evidence that they're keeping quiet at the scene. He could have left a note with him that he did this and the reason he did it. And that's it's good that they withhold some of this type of information at the moment, because it obviously helps with their investigation. They don't get inundated with other comments and things that. So it's probably a good thing that they're keeping some things quiet. And I'm guessing that's probably close to what's probably been found at the scene. Something that definitely points to Dad.
Yeah, I believe Travis had a dog, followed by yes. The dog was found alive. I assume that was Chinook. I mean, Pascal, just because you're an expert in dog behavior, I mean, how would a dog react to witnessing something like that? You know, dogs instinctively try to help, especially I think young children. What do you think the dogs? And I know this might sound like a crazy question, but I'm curious because I'm a dog lover. But what do you think how this dog may have reacted to what was going on if this dog witnessed all this?
A dog would naturally be very upset about what's going on, would show that by barking. I'm surprised there was a dog and nobody heard it, but I understand it's very remote. But a dog would potentially bark, claw, even attack the attacker. So it depends on the dog, the personality of the dog, but there are many dogs that would sense that this is imminent danger to the children he loves and would potentially attack the attacker. But my understanding is the dog was owned by him, right? It was his dog.
Yes.
So, yes. So that may change the situation. And of course, you can confine a dog in the RV but yes, the dog would definitely react loudly.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the dog was found alive, which I'm not sure if I knew. So, just Pascal, on the same topic, this guy sounds like someone who was incredibly attached to his dog, but leaves the dog behind. Does that give you any sense of he was leaving him behind because he knew he was going to eliminate himself and didn't want the dog there? Or just couldn't take the dog because now he had to go, climbing through the woods or whatever?
In my opinion, the former. So when I heard that he left the dog behind, I was very, very surprised, because if this is a guy that has no home, all he has is his dog as attachment point, emotional support. The fact that he left the dog shows me that he probably wanted to kill himself or has killed himself. That's what I would say as an expert or as a person who works with the bond between human and animal.
Yeah. Jim, I mean, I would be stunned if this ends in any other scenario other than finding him dead somewhere in the woods. But Jim, that could be real. I mean, that might never happen. I mean, these woods are so secluded. How important, I guess, is the question for authorities to make a find here, to find this person and just get a conclusion, not closure, but a conclusion to this chapter of this story, to say, okay, this guy is unalived himself, if in fact that was the case. So everyone knows that's what happened, and we're not living under an umbrella of fear.
Well, you just answered it. You're exactly right. They will be on this till they find him. It may get scaled down. Like, for example, let's take the Green River killer we had here. That got scaled down. It was eventually caught. But the bottom line is that they're not giving up. This is such a heinous crime that they're not going to let this guy get away.
Yeah, and so Jim, just elaborate on that. So this is obviously a remote area. He could get potentially up to Canada, which I think is only, we're looking at, by the way, the COE used to work not far in Yakima, Washington, a powerhouse news market. But I mean, this guy could at some point make it up to Canada. The Rock Island campground all the way to the left here is where this went down. But Jim, just explain, we saw the helicopter in the air, but what's going on the ground? Like, if you had to guess, how many people are on the ground? How are they do grid searches? I mean, what is taking place today out there?
Yeah, it's run like a search and rescue operation, only with a suspect at the end and not a missing hiker. So they're searching ground searches, and I'm sure they're using civilians, trackers, dogs, helicopters, drones. SWAT teams are there, and it's a joint operation. Like I said, you mentioned that the Secret Service, the FBI and the U.S. Marshals are there. So they're doing a combined effort with the tips and the logistics and the search and rescue people that know the terrain well enough to what are the best case scenario where this guy might have gone.
Yeah. So Vesper brings up a good point. She agreed to take the care of the dog, but I don't know that he obliged and let her take the dog. It sounds like the dog was with them, but let us, if you guys know, because I don't know the specifics of the situation with the dog, please let me know. Court O letting us know that he or she lived in Chelan County uh, for 3 years. So there you go. They found the dog unharmed and he's nowhere to be seen. He probably offed himself. That's potentially my guess here. But Pascal, back to you. So you're a former attorney in another life. What about, I mean, just in general, the family courts and the mental health services system? Um, what I mean, can anything, you always after the fact, and hindsight's 2020, but I guess in your own opinion, what can family courts do to make sure that cases like this, there's always cases that just, they don't fit the criteria and they just fall through the cracks. So is there anything family courts can do to create a safety net for these sorts of, pretty rare situations, but they happen?
I could go on a tangent about our system in terms of mental health support and the courts. I think there are red flags in this case. He refused to sign the document about the new parental custody agreement. He did not want to get evaluated, not for domestic violence, not for anger management, not for mental health. So I just wonder sometimes how the judge then said, it's going to be what I say, we're going to do it the way I say it, even if you don't sign. But aren't these red flags for the court system to say, okay, but this guy is not in his right mind? So honestly, I don't think the judge is at fault here. There are cases where it's way more extreme. It's so clear that there were red flags simply because Whitney did not prove or even allege that he was violent, not towards her, not towards the kids. So in such a case, it truly falls through the cracks. It's just so difficult to then say, okay, you only get supervised visitation. The cases I know with supervised visitation are usually drug related or domestic violence related. So there's proven that through a TV at the kids, or he had drugs, he consumed drugs in the house, or the child ingested drugs in the house. Those are then going towards supervised visitation,
Yeah.
which must be here.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any good outcome to this story, and the worst of it has already happened. But Marie here, and I mean, just going back to Whitney, the mother. I mean, this is literally a week in. As time passes, I think it's going to get harder and harder for her because the reality is going to set in. The media is going to go away. The search will quiet down, and she's going to be left basically with her thoughts. And when it comes to this, it's not going to be too good. Marie letting us know wherever Kent, Washington is, that there is a heavy police presence there. Jim Fuda, what do you make of that? You're the retired hostage negotiator in Seattle. You hear that there's a heavy police presence. Does that mean that they've been tipped off or that they know something we don't know?
Well, I'm guessing that's a totally unrelated incident to here. You're looking at Eastern Washington to Western Washington, which is a big difference away. So that's probably something else.
Yeah, there you go. And by the way, I mean, he doesn't have a car, so and someone, Marilyn here, saying she grew up in Kent. What's going on in Kent? We don't know, but someone's saying that there is, and I don't know the geography of Washington State. Forgive me. So Jim is letting us know they are on opposite sides of the state. So likely nothing having to do with this, although could have hopped on the bus. You don't know, but Flora Paris, borderline includes extreme rejection, criticism, sensitivity, any suggestion of that would cause extreme emotions. Mix that with drugs and alcohol, and obviously it gets bad. The COE letting us know that Kent is a totally different region here. Pascal, coming back to you. So the COE put up a prior incident and we kind of glossed over it, but I think this is important. There was mention of him finding one of the girls with the terry cloth belt of a robe around her neck. And I'm wondering now, was one of the girls, I mean, these are young girls, 9 and under, was she having emotional problems, or is the implication there that he had it didn't sound like he'd put the robe around her neck, but I assume now with the investigation, they're going to have to go back and look and find out, did he ever try to do this or harm the girls previously? But what did you make of that little bit of information, Pascal?
This is such a good point. There's the robe incident. There's incidents of screaming and crying of the children. They didn't want to go to dad. There were FaceTime calls described where the kids were screaming. So clearly this guy had issues in his parental capabilities. So there's no doubt in my mind. And I sometimes wonder, why don't we listen to children? Mm-hmm. Why don't we listen to Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia, 5, 8, and 9, who do not want to go to dad, who scream and cry, who lay on the floor with a robe tied around their neck? I mean, sometimes the signs are so obvious, right? There's the legal side, but then there's also the children spoke to us, in my opinion, in this case.
Yeah. Jim, sorry, I just swallowed a fly, I think. Joey here. I'm not sure if this is legit or not, and that's an all. I don't mean to in any way belittle Joey's what Joey, he or she is saying here, but just have to take caution in the early hours and I guess a week of this event going on. But Travis Decker has reportedly been spotted in the Cedro Wally area, wherever that is. Report anything and stay safe. He's reportedly got a car. I mean, if this is true, that's a big if, Jim. How would this guy have gotten another car? If you see anything, by the way, you just call 911. But Jim, what about the notion that maybe he was able to get another car and get away?
Well, it's not impossible. He can steal a different vehicle if he definitely knows how to do that. But and I'm sure they're checking that on any stolen vehicles that have been reported in that area. But for example, now Cedro Woolly's north of the Seattle area, but then we've also had reports in Idaho that he's supposedly been seen there too. So people are concerned and they're looking and so they're taking all these seriously and looking at the probability of where this guy could possibly be. So there's a lot of good law enforcement minds working on this case.
Yeah. So some more information is being revealed, as is usually the case, and one of them is that he texted Whitney, and I'm not sure of the time frame, but it was fairly recently that he texted the ex-wife, and I quote here, "I have nothing except for you and the girls." I mean, Pascal, and I'm going to come to Jim on this as well, but this sounds, from a family court and from a lawyerly perspective, but also a psychological perspective, like he was both desperate, but also saw no, there was no hope, there was no future. That the wife he was divorced from, and the kids, I don't know, he was having limited, I guess, visitation or wasn't seeing them, and he's literally saying, "I have nothing." This could definitely be, I guess, motivation. But why take that away from himself if that's all he had?
I think we need to look at the court system. The family court, they do hundreds of cases, and Whitney had 10 minutes in September 2024. So we're not, if a judge had 2 hours for each case, and we could go through text messages and reactions and the kids screaming and all the incidents, descriptions, we would be in a different boat. But this is boom, boom, boom in the court system. And it's I hear your case, you have 10 minutes to explain or by your attorney, and then a decision is made. So I really think us now in hindsight, looking at all the red flags, would have judged the situation differently, but that's just not how the court system works.
Yeah. Another question for you, Pascal, but this is a comment is interesting from Shih Tzu Love, which is right up your alley with dogs here. I read that the father has extensive knowledge of living off grid as well as survival skills, plus being ex-military. His own father, that would be Travis Decker's father, said he would go off for months into the woods. Jim, let me just come to you real quick on that one. So this guy is essentially, I mean, he's a ranger in the Army. He's almost, I guess, what equates to a survivalist. So even if he's going to unalive himself and hasn't done it yet, he could buy a lot of time in the woods. I mean, where does fatigue come into play for law enforcement, where he outmaneuvers them? And then here's the video, the ring video. But I mean, will law enforcement? You said they're not going to give up. They've got to get eventually worn out by looking for this guy.
Oh yeah, they'll do shift work and like they would on any other case. And this one's gone a week, but this is a 24/7 operation. And I
Whoop! I think Jim just froze up. Pascal, do I have you?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Jim, you just froze up. I think you're back, Jim. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was just mentioning about the suicide part of things is that, we look at things where there's something called the trigger point, and that moment in time when a person is both mentally and physically capable of killing themselves. In other words, I got that desire to die and I've got this gun over here, but to take the mental part of that and put it with the physical and actually, as you call it, unalive yourself is a very short period of time. He might be past that now. Or working up to that, or then it gets into the suicide by cop. I'll make it more difficult for them to find me, and when they do, we'll have a standoff, and then they'll have to unalive me. So who knows?
Yeah. By the way, there is a GoFundMe that has already raised in less than a week over $1 million for Whitney Decker. I guess originally it was for burial costs, but I think she's going to need the help. Vesper Martini here, quoting Whitney's attorney: "He was a loving man, but something broke, and whatever monster came out of him, it's something that he was trained to do in the military," which is scary. But Pascal, to you, apparently he had tried recently to obtain VA services, having been in the military, but he didn't have an advocate. He didn't have anyone to help him. The VA system's got a lot of problems in this country, but if this guy was trying to get help, and he couldn't because he literally didn't have an advocate kind of helping him and showing him the way. I mean, that's just a massive dropping of the ball. And I hope that there's, that there are attorneys like you once were who step in to take action here to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Absolutely. The system is broken, but I would like to caution that does not mean that then you unalive your 3 beautiful girls. It's just such a leap, and this is a combination of elements. And he had them sleep at the shelter with only male at the National Guard Armory in Wenatchee. Who in a right mind as a parent takes your 3 girls and lets them sleep in a homeless shelter where only men are present? Then he went to Safeway, this is a store here, shopping, and left the 3 girls in the male shelter. There's so many red flags of behavior that is not normal for being a parent of 3 little girls. And if you put them in a basket, we should have taken away his rights. I'm sorry. That's just the bottom line for me.
I do believe Travis Decker, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Native American. Someone said, who knows, maybe he's potentially could hide out on a reservation, which I'm sure there are some in Washington State in this particular area. But Jim, a couple of questions for you. They're releasing these pictures. Obviously, again, this guy is physically very fit and has survivalist skills. But I assume this is SOP to just release as much video now and photos and in different, haircuts and, with clothes, shirtless, whatever it is, so that the public gets a really good look at him. Are they going to continue to do this now? Oh, you're muted, Jim. Just have to unmute.
Yeah, I hope they continue to do so, and I think they will. They want to show the different ways he could possibly looking, if he's cut his hair, if he shaved his head, if he's grown it out, if he's grown a beard, and those tattoos are going to be very identifiable. If somebody has any doubt that they've seen this guy, those will definitely help identify him.
Yeah, and Jim, what about they believe he could be along the Pacific Crest Trail, which I know zero about. I don't know how much you know, but in terms of that kind of terrain and that location, again, are they going to have to rely more on air support? You said if he's already unalived himself, there's not going to be any heat that comes off him. Otherwise, they could even track, if he is alive, they could track him at night. What if he's like, Jim, what if he's in a shed, let's say, or an outhouse? Does it pick up does the flare pick up that heat through the roof of that?
Yeah, it will, but depending on how much insulation, things like that. But it is more difficult. And if he's on the Pacific Crest Trail, someone's going to find him. There's a lot of hikers that try to. I think that runs into Canada all the way down to California. To be honest with you, that Pacific Crest Trail. So it's well known, and there would be other people on that would be able to spot him if that's where he is.
COE, she is giving a reason as to why she must post a shirtless photo, but it's out there, and I think we need to see it because who knows? This guy could be walking around shirtless, and then you see a guy with a dad bod, and it's not him because this guy's fit. So they're going to put these photos out, and they are going to try to track him down. That is for sure. There was something right here that I was looking at. Oh, this was it. Jim, another one for you, and then we'll start to get some final thoughts. Whitney, look, he got rid of his own children, obviously in a horrible state of mind, but it sounds like if he couldn't have them, no one was going to have them. But also, it appears that he's, forlorn, really upset about the fact that his wife perhaps is rejecting him and they're in this divorce. If you're law enforcement, you have to protect the wife now. Are there police cars in front of her house? What if he's trying to get to her to also eliminate her to satisfy himself?
Yeah, I guess that's a possibility. I would be guess that she's not staying at the house right now. So if she's in protective custody, she's with family. I don't know where she's at. That's a good question. But authorities will definitely keep her safe.
Yeah. Huge thanks. We put this together very last minute, but again, it's a really important show. You just don't know who is going to watch this and either see him and turn him in. You just never know with the world and the way media is today with a lot of people on YouTube. But Pascal Fortman, I've heard nothing but great things from your husband, and he was right about all of them. We're going to get rid of Jim and have you on the show instead of him from now on. We'll have you both on. Just want to get your final thoughts and just specifically, to policy changes. Do you think that, this woman, Whitney, the mom, sounds like she's going to, fight for reform when she's back on her, steady legs. I think she's definitely going to be out of it for the foreseeable future. But you think any reform comes out of this, and your final thoughts about this horrific crime and the fact that this manhunt is still going on?
Yes, I think we need to learn from tragedy, horrific tragedy like that. And I do believe we need to review the Amber Alert system, um, steadily improve also the court system, the family law system, or family court system. And I think there is a lesson to learn for police as well. Because I would like to know, when mom says this, about how does it go from mom calling police, police officer responding, and then to an Amber Alert? What is that process, and who has to truly raise their hand and say, go? These children are at risk. There's no doubt in our mind. Because as I said before, if you accumulate the bucket of red flags here, there are so many. So if Whitney could have mentioned all those red flags at 10 p.m. on Friday night, maybe these children would still be alive if an Amber Alert would have gone out.
Yeah. For those just joining, Pascal Fortman is a former attorney. She actually runs a company, her own business, which is related to dog training and the behavioral science of dogs, which is fascinating to me, considering that I live with Fred and Ethel and my 3 children. Sometimes it's hard to distinguish between the actual animals and the human animals, but we're all one happy family. Blackwood Orr chiming in from the Republic of Ireland. The poor mother, I'd rather suffer anything than the children. Yes, that is. I just think it's going to get really difficult for her. So it's after the media rush dies down that it's going to get really hard. But Future here says thank you to Jim and Pascal. We appreciate you both sharing your expertise with us. May justice be served for Paityn, Olivia, and Evelyn. For those who do not know, Jim Fuda is law enforcement for 33 years in Seattle, which is in Washington, which is the state where this happened, and spent a lot of his time as a hostage negotiator. A couple of questions to round things out here. Jim, I assume that they've got a hostage negotiator ready to go. What if they stumble across this guy in a cabin in the next hour? So how do they prep that? How does a hostage negotiator prep for an imminent call? Hey, come in. We got to get this guy and we got to take him alive. What's happening? Is someone on call right now?
Yeah, with my team that I ran for 25 years, would there be a call out like this, whether it be a SWAT search warrant, where there's a possibility that the SWAT team is just going in, is we would still have a negotiator there learning all that's happening around it, taking his notes, preparing for what might happen in case shots are fired, the SWAT team has to back out and the perimeter's on. We have a hostage negotiator on scene right then and there. So I'm sure they've got somebody, if there are SWAT teams out there that and they will have a negotiator at hand if they need one.
Yeah. So the show will end with a photo of the girls. Of course, this is the oldest, Paityn, and you've got Evelyn. Paityn, I believe, was 9. Evelyn on the left, 8, and Olivia Decker, I want to say, is about 5 or 6. Their lives were taken from them for absolutely no reason. Just a horrific crime. I mean, these could be any 3 girls anywhere in America who had a dad who was, an American patriot, a hero who fought for the country. But a lot of these, and I'm not blaming him because that's ultimately where the blame goes. But a lot of these guys who go into battle and see the worst of the worst of the worst, then they can't get help at the VA. And then really bad things happen to sweet, innocent children, as you see here. So, our system is broken too, and that needs help. But ultimately, the onus here and the responsibility goes to Travis Decker. Travis Decker, if you're out there, give yourself up. Jim Fuda, what would you say now that since you're the guy, and then we'll wrap it up? I mean, if you got on scene with him, how do you start? Like, what is one of the first things you would say on that megaphone, and where would you end up with him?
Well, I've actually done this before in real life with a guy that had PTSD, was in a truck, the one that murdered his wife and the ex-wife and the current boyfriend. And I told him he needed help. I said, you were a star for our country, and then the country failed. That's what I used to get him out. But then again, I'll speak from the heart. The devil walks amongst us, and what he did to those children were horrible.
Yeah, 100%. I'm always curious about these things. So, before we say a final goodbye, when you arrive on scene, is it like the movies? Do you try to get him? Do they have his cell phone number for you? Do you try to reach him on his cell phone first, so it's a little more personal, or are you hopping right on a megaphone? How does that work?
It depends on the logistics and the environment. If you're in the woods where there are no phones and he doesn't have one, but what negotiators have is a hostage rescue phone that we throw to the guy, and then we have a direct communication. And every time he picks up the phone, is that he gets the negotiator. So we have to SWAT and deliver that if we can.
And let's just make a hypothetical. This is a cabin in the remote woods. You throw him a phone, or you're using some sort of device to talk to him. What are your other quote unquote assets doing? Like, what's the SWAT team or the tactical teams doing while you're negotiating?
Well, they're planning an entry if things go sideways. They've put counter snipers up, and if there's higher ground where they can keep an eye on things to see who's coming in, moving, going up, coming in, going out. If anybody tries to escape, especially if there's hostages involved. And if at times we try to manipulate the environment, in other words, the need to eat, sleep, out contact with the outside world. We limit phone lines, and to where it make it sense where the negotiator becomes his lifeline, and hopefully a bond is built where the hostage taker or bad guy, whatever you want to call him, relies on the negotiator, and that trust is built.
This is a really devastating story, but fascinating, because we've got a guy that was a hostage negotiator for over 33 years, and his wife, who's an attorney and knows about the family court system, knows about dogs who are used in searches like this, and the Amber Alert system. So huge thanks to Pascal and Jim Fuda. And Pascal, you married a stud. This guy's how many people can say they're married to a hostage negotiator, but how many other people can say they're married to a Swiss attorney who raises and trains dogs? So, Jim, I think you got the better part of the deal here, Jim.
Oh, I hands down. I say that every day.
Yeah. But I'll say this. I'll leave you all with this on a lighter note. Brian Johnson is that knucklehead out there who founded a tech company, and he's spending his $500 million on trying to live forever. And he's, I don't know how old he is, 45, and he looks 30 years older than Jim. He'll probably be dead in 2 years. This guy, Jim Fuda, man, doesn't look a day over 50, this guy, if that. And he's a little bit older than that. So, Jim, whatever you're doing, you should be the longevity expert. And you don't look too bad either, Pascal. So anyway, now before I get myself in trouble, you guys stick around for 1 second so I can thank you. Love you, America. We're back, hopefully with a more stable, normal week next week. My daughter is officially a 5th grade graduate. It felt like she was graduating from MIT with a PhD in quantum physics for the number of parties, celebrations, gifts, but I still love you, V, and I'm very proud of you. And she's going off to a great middle school. One day, maybe she'll be a hostage negotiator. You never know. We'll see. Guys, stick around. See you guys on Monday. And we've got Rob D'Amico show on the other channel, 5 p.m. Eastern time at SDS Talk.